A wise man once said, "Knowledge is power," and I try to live by that. Today, we're talking about the Knowledge Divine Domain of Clerics in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Hey fellow Game Masters, I'm Richard Quiner, and welcome back to the RPG Daily, your daily dose of all things tabletop role-playing games, helping you build your world and master your game. Like I said before the little title, we're talking about the Knowledge Divine Domain, and an interesting thing about that is it's very closely related to the Arcana Divine Domain. So we're going to go over the differences a little bit and talk about what this domain is all about. And of course, leave your thoughts on this divine domain in the comments below so I know what you think about it. So what is the knowledge domain? Well, we know from just real life knowledge is about learning and understanding things. Similar to Arcana is all about mysteries and secrets, knowledge is just the practical knowledge and the practical understanding of things of the world. Similar to Arcana, there are many deities who want that knowledge and information to be shared with the world among their followers and other people, but there are just as many deities in the Dungeons & Dragons worlds that want that knowledge to be hoarded and kept for themselves to provide them the power of that knowledge. Because knowledge is power. If you are a cleric of a knowledge deity, you're out there looking for more information. You're seeking tomes and lore and kind of the hidden secrets and the histories of the world around you as you do go about your adventures day to day. Some of the well-known deities of knowledge are Ogma and Gillian and Thoth, but it also can include some of the more practical type of deities, such as Moradin, who is largely known for being a deity of the Forge, but he can also cross over into the knowledge realm a little bit as well. So now that we understand what knowledge is, how does the Knowledge Domain Cleric work? Like all clerics, you start by getting certain spells at different levels of your progression that you just add to your cleric list. At level 1, you get the spells Command and Identify, which Identify is not a normal cleric spell, but it's really useful in letting you know what a magic item is and how to use it, and it's really good for low-level groups because more often than not, you don't have that ability to understand an item at a low level. But having this spell, Identify, having a cleric that can use that, makes it very easy to understand magic items and what they do and how they work, so you can make better use of those early on in your game. At level 3, the Knowledge Cleric will get Augury and Suggestion. Two spells. Augury is already on the cleric list, Suggestion is not, but they have very different uses. Augury is kind of a simple know your future, but it's not as useful as you might think just by that. Essentially, your party has to make a decision, a course of action, and then using Augury, your cleric can figure out if that is going to go well for the party, or poorly for the party, or just neutral. It's pretty vague, and it's a lot up to the DM's discretion, so that's why Augury is just kind of there. But Suggestion, however, is a very powerful spell that you can basically cause a creature to do what you ask them to do for about 8 hours, as long as they're not hurting themselves. So Suggestion is a simple yet powerful spell to have early on. At level 5, you get Non-Detection and Speak with Dead. Now, Non-Detection is not on the cleric spell list, but it is a really good kind of espionage spell that you can use if someone needs to sneak into, for example, a wizard's tower where there's a chance of being scryed upon, scrying being magical spying, kind of magical surveillance. The non-detection spell can actually cast it on a target, creature, or person, and then that person cannot be seen by divination magic, such as scrying. So in that case, it would be really good to have if you have a rogue that needs to sneak into a wizard tower to get some information or some item, or any other type of situation where you don't want people to find you or your party using their magics. At level 7, you get the spells Arcane Eye and Confusion. Arcane Eye is a real simple spying magic where you send an actual eyeball, a magical eye, into a location and it feeds back information to you. The Confusion is a little more fun though, because you confuse somebody so much with this spell that they lose control of their actions. So what happens is the target has to make a wisdom saving throw, and if they fail, then they have to roll a d10 and compare that to the action list that is included with the Confusion spell, and do whatever the action list tells them to do based on their d10 roll. So that's kind of a fun thing. If you want to confuse somebody, you can, it's kind of the opposite of giving them knowledge. You're taking knowledge away from them for temporary, and then they are just acting as the dice tell them to do. At level 9, you get the spells Legend, Lore, and Scrying. Now, both of these are divination spells, and they are on the clerics list normally, so any cleric would have access to these, but it's nice to get those for free. Scrying is a magical way to view any part of the world of the current plane of existence your character is on. As long as you know the object or the target that you're scrying upon, you can do that. It's a little easier the more well you know something. So for example, if the adventure party who is scrying, the cleric, has a family member they're trying to watch, they probably know them pretty well and would have an easier time to scry on them. If it's just a wizard they know of, or just somebody in a far off land that they've heard the name of, it's much more difficult. The target of the scrying attempt will have to pass a wisdom saving throw in order to avoid being scryed upon. Legend lore is kind of an interesting spell that gives you a lot of knowledge based on an item. If you know an object, or know of an object, all you have to do is say the name or describe it very well, and then you can learn the history of that object, including any substantial events that it was a part of. This kind of depends on the DM and how well the world is built in the back, also how good the DM is at improvising, because some objects that might exist in your world and they might have names and might be notable to you as a player might not have been so notable to the world previously. So knowing your legend lore about an object really depends on the kind of the influence or the importance of that object in the past. But it's still a neat little magic trick, or a neat spell I should say, that can give you a lot of information about an object if you find one that is actually important to your campaign. Now, those are all the free spells you get, and like I mentioned in the cleric overview, you get all those spells for free. They're just part of your list, and they're always prepared. You do not get to cast them for free, however, because they still cost a spell slot to use, but these spells are for you as the Knowledge Domain. Now, getting into the features of the Knowledge Domain, you can see it has a tendency to lean towards divination. In terms of the spells, you saw that also a lot of these spells were all about gathering information, which basically makes it a divination cleric. But right off the bat, as a level 1 knowledge cleric, you get the feat Blessing of Knowledge, which gives you a couple cool bonuses. First off, you can learn 2 new languages that you might not have known before, and also you get to gain 2 new skill proficiencies in the knowledge realm. You have the options of Arcana, Nature, History, and Religion, and you can pick 2 more of those to add to your skill proficiencies. At level 2, you get another Channel Divinity in addition to Turn Undead, as we've talked about. This one is called Knowledge of the Ages, and what this Channel Divinity does is give you a temporary proficiency in some sort of skill or tool. You basically tap into your divine knowledge that is given to you from your deity, and then you're suddenly proficient in the skill or tool that you are focused on, and you have that proficiency for the next 10 minutes. This is really cool if you're in a party that doesn't have a rogue, or you're separate from a rogue, for example, and you need to pick a lock. You can use your Channel Divinity to become skilled with some lock picking, sleight of hand perhaps, or lockpick tools, and then you'll be able to pick that lock more efficiently. Otherwise, likely you don't have proficiency in thieves' tools, so you're not going to be able to pick that lock very well. That's where this Channel Divinity comes in. At level 6, though, you get another Channel Divinity. This level 6 Channel Divinity is actually Read Thoughts. Now, it's similar to another spell that's out there, but this one, instead of using a spell slot, it uses your Channel Divinity ability. So this Read Thoughts has a couple levels to it and a couple things you can do. First off, the target has to make a wisdom saving throw, and if they fail, you're able to read their surface level thoughts. Surface level being kind of what's on the top of their mind. You don't get to get in and try to pry out the information like Professor X. You really only can read that information of the kind of the surface thoughts, what they're thinking in that moment, and this information is available to you for 1 minute. But there's more to it. As an action, you can actually end this spell, you can end the reading of thoughts, and instead cast Suggestion on that target. This casting of Suggestion does not use a spell slot to cast, and the target automatically fails their saving throw, which means you're basically reading their mind and then telling them what to do for the next 8 hours. It's a pretty powerful combination when you really think about it. You can read someone's thought. Perhaps someone was thinking, oh, I'm gonna go kill somebody, and you can suggest that they don't do that task, and then have them go do something else, like go dance around the town or something. I don't know, it's up to you what you want to do with it. At level 8, you get the ability Potent Spellcasting, which we've seen before. You add your Wisdom ability score modifier to any cleric cantrip damage that you cast. So if you cast a cleric cantrip and it causes damage, you add your Wisdom modifier to that as well to cause a little extra damage. Level 8 abilities in these divine domains you'll see are very simple and all very similar. There's a couple of variations to it, but not a lot. At level 17, kind of your knowledge pinnacle ability is called Visions of the Past. Essentially, what Visions of the Past allows you to do is, through meditation and focus, you can understand the history of an object or a place. Essentially, what Visions of the Past lets you do is, through meditation and focus, you can see the past and learn information and see visions of an object or a place. If you want to do this to an object, you have to hold the object while you're meditating. You'll learn important information such as if it was previously owned, how the previous owner may have lost it, and also the most recent significant event that this object was involved in. If you want to use your Visions of the Past in an area, all you have to do is be in that location while you're doing your meditation. What you will be seeing are visions of recent events that happened in that place, and you will see a number of significant events equal to your cleric level. So this is happening at level 17, so you'll be able to see up to 17 significant events in that location. Granted, this is at DM's discretion, meaning not all DMs can come up with 17 significant events that happen in a place. They might have that, but I would say don't hold your breath and expect a DM to have all 17 ready to go when you decide to use this, because it's a lot of information they're going to have to dish out in a very short time. And by significant, it really relies on the emotions that occurred in that event. Betrayal and love and battles and these kind of things are considered significant events. So those are the kind of stuff you'll likely witness in your visions. Thinking about this divine domain, it really stands out to me that this is the divination character or the divination cleric. Basically, they're gathering the information and feeding it to the party to help make the party's decisions a little more safe and more tactical at times. So thinking about it, I want these guys to be able to cast spells as much as possible. I would rather have them focus on casting the spells rather than being in the middle of the combat, so I wouldn't think of them as a heavy, get in the middle and start bashing skulls kind of cleric, but more as a hang back, provide some support. But in order to get that kind of ability, I would think going with the Resilient feat, which I've mentioned before, gives you a +1 to 1 ability score, plus proficiency in saving throws of that ability score. So having Resilience for Constitution, for example, would add to your Constitution and give you the ability to save a little bit better in case you did get hit during a concentration spell, which is pretty important. I would also recommend, I'm not going to say highly recommend, I would kind of recommend the Warcaster feat, because that allows you to, if you are in the middle of combat, it allows you to use your spells to your advantage. I think for a cleric, the opportunity attacks of a Warcaster, you're allowed to use a spell if you have the Warcaster feat. A cleric having a cleric cantrip, for example, ready to go, and being able to pop off a cantrip during an opportunity attack, I think is a lot more potent than a cleric getting to hit someone with a mace, for example. Especially since this divine domain, you're not really dealing with proficiencies in weapons and armor, unless that is your racial traits. That's what I would think on this, is maybe Warcaster would let you be a little more effective in combat, and Resilient would let those spells keep going a little longer if you got attacked while you were casting something, for example. That's kind of my thoughts on this. I would probably also front load or add on to the ability score of Intelligence with this. Yes, clerics are wisdom-based casters, but a lot of this stuff is about knowledge, and you want to be smart and kind of learned, so maybe adding some intelligence to help those intelligence checks and rolls go a little better might be in your best interest. Anyways, that is the Knowledge Divine Domain. I hope you enjoyed this. I'm Richard. Thanks for watching.